Okay, guys, we are live. We're live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you've all had a good weekend. The weather's been all right as well. It's been sort of touch and go the last week or so. I know autumn's definitely here. It's definitely on the doorstep, and it's that time of year where we can, still get outside and it not be, fingers crossed, painfully sort of wet, damp, cold, windy, and we can sort of get out and start to see nature changing for winter a little bit as well. So maybe it's been what we are now, 2 or 3 months since everything sort of opened up again and like restrictions lifted. Maybe you've been back to the gym, maybe you've been back to, you know, restaurants and meals and parties and all of that sort of thing. A well-needed blowout, I can well imagine. But of course, I hate to say it, guys, but Christmas is coming. Christmas is coming, and in 2 months' time, we're going to be into that month where we're thinking about all the good stuff that we can eat and drink and all of that sort of stuff. So, we've got this little period in between, where we can hopefully be thinking about our fitness, thinking about our well-being, and hopefully starting to move some of our behaviors and our habits back towards sort of pre-COVID sort of levels and stuff like that, just for how active we're able to be. Because I know I firsthand can sort of vouch for spending a lot more of the last 18 months sat down than I normally would have done, not as mobile as I'm used to being. So it's a good chance now, like I say, to just get on of get back into some good habits, like I say, especially before before the quality street tins are getting passed around at Christmas and stuff like that. So we've got a couple of months. Let's see where we can go with it, guys. And of course, the more we learn, the more we can sort of factor in and sort of deal with Christmas in a way that lets us enjoy ourselves, but also puts us in a good position coming into January as we start the new year. And hopefully it'll be the first lockdownless year that we have for a couple of years at least. So yeah, fingers crossed, guys. Anyway, so what we are jumping in with this morning, we're going to be looking at the skeleton and the joints and the way that certain bones actually fit together to help us move about in certain ways, and just the function of the skeleton in general. I know we all know that we have bones, but really, what do they do? What are they there for? Do they do more than what we might just think? And that's what we're going to have a little bit of an explore this morning, guys. As always, there is a little drop down box below the YouTube video, and that little drop down box has got my email address in. I'm just trying to get it to load up now, actually, so I can double check. But it'll have my email address in case you need to get in touch with me for any reason. Of course, there's no workbooks for this course, but if you've got any questions or anything like that, or struggling to complete the surveys, then again, drop me an email. There is a workout video, as always, and today it's a core workout, so there'll be a little bit of abs, a little bit of lower back, some for your obliques, which is your sides, and for those deep lying core muscles as well. Really good for core strength, not just overly working the muscles that would make up your six-pack and ignoring the rest of your core, which is really sort of easy to fall into when you're doing what would be thought of as core training, but anything to do with sort of like the abs and stuff like that. Just working the abs is working one muscle. For that good strong core, we've got to work all the muscles, all of those deep lying muscles, your pelvic floor, diaphragm, and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, there's a abs session for today, about 30-35 minutes. And of course, as always, if that's not tickling your fancy, or if that's not really, if you're fancying something a little bit easier to ease into the week, just follow that video. That'll take you straight to our YouTube playlist, and that'll actually take you straight to all the other videos that are up there as well. So maybe if you want to do a little bit of a stretch for a Monday morning and ease off, there's a stretching video on there, for example. So by all means, go on and have a look at the different videos that's there as well, guys, and check those out. I will, of course, be watching along on the chat on my phone. So if you've got any questions or anything like that, anything that you want to add, or anything that you want to sort of chime in with, again, just pop it in the chat, and I'll sort of, like I say, keep an eye on that throughout the morning. Okay, guys. So just before we do move on, just coming back to that little description box under the YouTube video, all the extra supplementary learner info's in there as well. So copy of our sort of learner handbook and anything to do with e-safety and learning safely online and all of that sort of things all in there as well, guys. So just so you know where to go for that. Okay, let's get into it then, guys. So of course we've got a lot to talk about, and we're focusing, like I say, on the skeleton and the many different ways that it all sort of fits together and what it does. Let's say, so the skeleton has got 4 main functions, really. In fact, let's go to, there we go. So the skeleton, it's got 4 main functions. Yeah, like I say, we all know we've got bones, but like I say, what do they do? So we've got movement, guys, first of all. So movement, of course. We've spoken already about our muscular system and the way that certain muscles contract to allow us to move in certain ways, and like the nervous system and the way the nervous system fires into the muscles. But if we think about it, guys, the muscles have got to attach to something and they've got to move something, don't they? You know, so our skeleton actually helps us move as well, in that the muscles will connect onto the bone, certain bones, and when that muscle contracts, it moves the body in a certain way. So same again, if we come back to the bicep and the tricep sort of example that I like to use, we've got our bicep is here. As this shortens, it pulls this forearm in towards my head or my face. Yeah. If my tricep shortens, it pulls it the other way. So it's exactly like almost like a lever and pulley system sort of thing. But of course, the only reason that my arm moves in when this muscle contracts is because this muscle is attached to one of these 2 bones. Yeah, if this muscle wasn't attached to bone, it wouldn't matter if it contracted or anything, because it wouldn't then bring my arm in. So of course, we need something for muscles to attach onto to allow us any movement at all, really, you know. And you think even the way that certain bones fit together, you know, they're designed for particular movements. You know, again, for example, the shoulder is essentially a ball into a socket joint, which we'll be getting a look at towards the end of the session as well. But it's a ball in a socket joint, so it can move in a lot of different sort of angles. It's not like an elbow that'll just sort of open and close like a hinge. Yeah, almost like a door hinge sort of thing, you know. So the bones fit together and sort of meet each other in very, very sort of specific ways that let us move again as well, you know. Just the thing, for example, obviously our knee joint, which is 2 bones coming together with a kneecap sat on top of it. The way that comes together lets us move. You know, if we just had 1 bone from sort of the hip down to our ankle, we would have some movement, but not as much as we do, you know. So sort of everything's there by design, guys. None of it's accidental. And I say that's pretty much the first main function of the skeleton, followed by just support and shape, guys. If you think how much of our shape that we recognize as human comes from the skeleton, you know, you're talking obviously your skull, then you're talking your shoulders, which are going to sort of set your frame a little bit. Then you've got your rib cage, which is going to give you obviously like your chest cavity and stuff like that, you know. Then obviously we're down and we've got a long torso, or sort of like a long trunk, which then branches off into 2 legs at the bottom, which will, you know, move independently as well, you know. So we've got that sort of recognizable human shape, of course, and support, guys. Like, can you imagine if we had no bones? We would kind of like just be like a sack of jelly, really, you know. If you think about it, it's like that bit in Harry Potter where he gets his broken arm fixed, and he ends up taking the bones out and it just turns to rubber in the end. It would be exactly like that, guys, you know. So in order to even sort of stand up, hold ourselves, move in the way that we do at all, we need that support and that shape that comes from our skeleton as well. Okay, guys, so the third one is protection. So of course we're thinking major organs, and like major internal organs. We're thinking obviously like the brain, which sits nice and protected inside the skull, just as your eyes do as well. You know, one of our senses that when we think about it from a survival point of view, when we were evolving and stuff like that, we needed our eyes, you know, to spot predators and potentially keep us alive as well. So our eyes sit in our skull for protection. So does the brain. Then we've got our rib cage again, you know. So our rib cage, if you think about where your main organs are, and a lot of your main organs, so we're talking, you know, your liver, your kidneys, your heart, your lungs, they're all in this torso area, aren't they? You know, they're all in this midriff area. There's not like your appendix isn't in like your foot or something like that. You know, it's all close to the center of your body, and that is because your ribs and your breastplate, so your sternum, actually give a lot of protection for, you know, your heart and your lungs quite high up, but even some of those lower down organs as well. You know, so we're getting some protection there. Your spine and the different bones and the different vertebrae in your spine actually give your nervous system a bit of protection as well, because of course all of our nerves run down our spinal column and down our spinal cord. So you know, our bones give that a little bit of protection as well. So we're not like when we lean back in a chair, we're not pressing straight on all of those major nerves that want to run down our back. So a lot of protection going on, guys, as well. The kneecap's another one, actually, thinking about them nerves. So if we think about that example that I mentioned earlier on, and you think about the knee joint and how it fits together, and obviously when you bend your knee, it opens up. Yeah, if you were to open that up and kneel, like if you were to come down and kneel onto your knee and the kneecap wasn't there, you would just be kneeling again straight onto all of those nerves, all of those sort of underlying things that we want to protect as well. So our kneecap gives us a little bit of protection there as well. So a lot of protection, guys, from the skeleton, as well as the support and shape, and of course movement. And the last one that we've got is blood production. So a little one from left field there, you know, a little one out of the blue. Surprised me the first time I ever came across it. We've got, of course, our body uses and needs like red blood cells, blood cells in general, for fighting infection, carrying oxygen around the body and stuff like that. And in what we would call the longer bones, like long bones in the body. So this is a long bone, yeah. So of course, in the hand, we've got lots of little individual bones. Yeah. The skull would be considered like a flat bone, same as the sternum would be, again, your breastplate. And then we've got what we sort of classify as long bones, which is a lot closer to the sort of bones that you'd probably see in cartoons, and you would probably draw yourself, you know, that idea of a big long sort of shaft, and then the sort of two end bits where they're going to meet together. So these long bones, inside the bone, inside like the bone marrow, in the cavity in the bone, there's actually this blood cell production going on, in this blood production. So like I say, we're talking probably like upper arm, humerus, and the upper leg. So where your thigh is, that bone there, the femur, those are long bones, and yeah, those are actually producing red blood cells as well, guys. So another really important function of the skeleton that probably doesn't get enough recognition. Okay, guys, so yeah, those are the four main functions of the skeleton. Then, so we've got movement, and obviously getting us about place to place, support and shape, giving us the shape that we're familiar with, and of course keeping us upright, keeping us in that shape, protection for a lot of major organs, and you know, like your lungs, your heart, your kidney, your brain, this, that, and the other, and then of course blood production for those blood cells as well that's happening in those long bones as well. So what we're going to move on to now, guys, just to the old brain on a Monday morning, why not make sure that we're all awake? We've got a little task to do. So what we've got the a little diagram of the skeleton here on the left hand side, and on the box, on the bottom right hand side, we've got a box with different names, or different scientific names for the bones in the body. And what we're going to try and do, guys, or what you're going to try and do, guys, should I say, is you're going to try and fill in these boxes here. So we'll give it just 5 minutes or so, 5 to 10 minutes, and see how many of these we can get, guys. So of course, we've got a couple of little clues in there as well, where we see this first one here. We can see the first letter's missing, but then we've got and we've got an R afterwards as well. So we can look through here, and we can have a look and see which of these has R as a second letter. Yeah. And we can see from there, the only word with R as the second letter is going to be cranium. Yeah. So then we can check if that fits. C-R-A-N-I-U-M. Perfect. So the first one, cranium. Yeah. Fancy word for the skull. Maybe you've come across it before. I think there was a board game years ago actually called Cranium. It was obviously all to do with the mind, all to do with the brain and stuff like that. Just come back to us that. That's been years. I've never come across that for a long time. Okay, guys. Anyway, yeah. So the first one was cranium. That one on the top left-hand side. So yeah, guys, working our way down. So we can see this one. It looks as though it's pointing to the okay, so that one there's pointing to the collarbone. Yeah, that one's pointing to the collarbone there. I wasn't sure if it was trying to point to the shoulder blade on the other side, but that's this one. Okay, so then we've got the forearm. Yeah, funny bone. And we've got the little bones in the hand. What's this one here? We've got that one is the shoulder blade. Yeah, so that one's pointing to the other side of the body. This one is pointing to the breastplate, which I might have just given you the name to a minute ago, actually, when I was talking about those protective bones and what they do. That is the breastplate. Then we've got this one here is looking at these little bones that all come together to make our sort of like our trunk, our backbone, if you could say. And we've got like the little bones that make up our feet and our toes. And coming over to the right hand side, so we can see that in the forearm, so in the forearm of the body, sort of from the elbow down to the wrist, it's not just one bone, it's actually two, guys, and we can see these two bones here. I don't know if I can zoom in. See if I can zoom in. Look. Yeah, so we can see that the forearm is two separate bones. Yeah, so we've got one obviously coming down from the little finger, and we've got one coming down from the thumb as well. So we've got these two bones there that sort of rotate and fold over each other as you turn your hand as well, and you can actually feel that happen. If you actually put your hand on your wrist, and if you feel where those two bones are, you can feel them sort of rotate as well as you move your palm from sort of palm up to palm down. So we've got two different bones there, guys. So of course we've got two separate words. They're two different names. So we've got one 4-letter word, yeah, and that is coming down from the pinky. And then we've got a 6-letter word coming down from the thumb as well, guys. So remember to check that box. See, I'll come out a little bit further. There we go, guys. Yeah, in fact, there we go. So check that box, see if there's any words that we can sort of through process of elimination, you know, the right amount of letters, the right letters in the right places. Can we work those out and get a couple of those filled in? But if you notice, guys, as well, just while you're on and working a couple out, It's exactly the same in the lower leg. Yeah, so our leg from the knee down, we've got our shin bone, and then there's a little bone in the back of the leg as well. So we've got two bones in our lower arms and two bones in our lower legs as well, which, you know, to me, gives a lot of sort of evidence to the fact that we probably did used to walk on all fours, and they probably were used for the same sort of things, because, you know, there's nowhere else in the body we've got this going on. It is literally just in the extremities of our limbs as well, you know. So it is interesting. Okay, guys. So where were we? So we did these two in the arm. Obviously, we know that there's two in the lower leg now as well. What else have we got? So we've got this big one here, big thigh bone. This bone that sits at the bottom of our spine, yeah, makes up our hips. And we've got the last one is this one here, which is pointing to all of these that are protecting, again, that heart and lungs that sits on the inside of there. Okay, guys, I'll give it another couple of minutes and we'll start working our way through. Even if we slowly work our way through exactly the way we did that first one. So, of course, anybody who wants to, guys, if you want to take another couple of minutes and try and get as many of these as you can and finish up, and then just pause it here if you want, finish them up, and then just press play when you're ready to move on. We'll start slowly working our way through. Okay, guys, let's do it. So, and then we'll get a good look at these bones in isolation, and we can talk about them a little bit more on the next couple of slides as well. So we did the cranium. So we have cranium for the head, for the skull. Okay, for the collarbone, well, we've got 1, 2, 8 letters, and the third one is A. Yeah, so 8 letters, and the third one is A. Can't be cranium, because we know we've had cranium. Could it be scapula? No, it can't be scapula, because that's only 7 letters. Let's have a look. Humerus is only 7. In fact, I think there's only one that is 8, guys, which is, of course, the right answer, and it is clavicle. Yeah, so it's clavicle is your collarbone. Yeah, so this sort of bony one that might stick out across there. That's your clavicle, guys. Like I say, we can talk about sort of what it does and all of that in just a second. So that was our clavicle. Okay, next one down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters this time. We know that the fourth one is an E. And I believe there's only one word that fits that, and it is the humerus. Yeah, so it's the humerus, guys. Have you ever heard it called the funny bone? That's where it comes from, the humerus, although it's not so funny when you bang it off something really, really hard. It sucks. Let's be honest, guys. It's no laughing matter at all. But yeah, that bone there is the humerus. Yeah, so that long one that makes up your upper arm down to the elbow joint, that's the humerus. Yeah. Okay. From there, we're down to the hands and the fingers. Little smaller bones that give us a lot more sort of movement, a lot more articulation in the hands, and those are what we call carpals. Yeah, so this first one here, carpals. So if you ever heard of carpal tunnel syndrome, you know, sort of like a condition that comes on from maybe repetitive stuff, doing the same stuff day after day after day, potentially for years. Carpal tunnel is quite common in people who sit and type all day, people like hairdressers and stylists that have got their arms elevated all day, and doing a lot with their hands. They tend to get pain from that. Sometimes people who've been working with automatic tools like jackhammers and stuff like that, like power tools for a long time, and like from the shock from the tool itself, and yeah. That's where that comes from, guys. That's because those are the bones that are in our hand, and we call them carpals, guys. So our carpals are sort of where our wrist is, pretty much. Then we've got our metacarpals higher up, and then they sort of branch off to be something else. So we've got carpals and metacarpals, guys, but the main ones to think about there are the carpals. Yeah. Okay. Next one we've got so this one was pointing through to the shoulder blade on the other side of the body, and the proper word for the shoulder blade is the scapula. Yeah, so we've got scapula in this one here, and that is the shoulder blade. Next one down is pointing to the breastplate. Yeah, it sits in the middle of your ribs. You know, you can actually like give it a knock there and actually feel how solid it is. And that is your sternum. That's your sternum, guys. Yeah, so that's the bone that they tend to have to go through if they need to like, especially like if they're doing an adrenaline shot in the heart, like if for those of you out there that have seen Pulp Fiction, and he has to like really hard, like down with the needle to pierce the bone. That's what it is. It's this breastplate. It's the sternum, and you know, like we know now, it's there to protect the heart and lungs. You know, so it's going to take some going through. So that is the sternum, guys. Really solid, flat bone, that is very protective, especially of your heart. Okay, so that was the sternum. Then we've got the spine. Yeah, so we've got our spine, which is a collection of little discs or little vertebrae, little chunks of bone that stack on top of each other, that makes our spinal column, which is again why we could, you know, hopefully flex and move our spine as much as we can. If we just had one bone in our spine, we would just be like stiff as a board. In fact, if you want examples of what that would be like, look at somebody like Ronnie Coleman. You know, he won Mr. Olympia so many times, but now he's had that many operations on his back. His back is essentially like just one fused bone, or plate, really, or rod, I guess you could really think about it as. That doesn't give him much movement at all, guys. So that's why we've got those little individual vertebrae, the little discs, and that's what people are talking about. If they say, "Oh, I've slipped a disc" or something like that, it's these little individual parts of the spine that can cause us problem. But of course, the whole thing in general is referred to as the spine. So this one here was our spine. Then we are down to like the feet and the toes and stuff. So now, remember, we had carpals in the hand. In the feet, we have tarsals. So we have carpals and tarsals in the feet, yeah. Any football fans out there might well actually be familiar with tarsals already. I remember Wayne Rooney breaking one before either a World Cup or a Euros, and he either missed it or he nearly missed it and he wasn't fit. And that was just from breaking one little bone in his foot from, I think it was just like a tackle or something like that. But one of these little bones, again, really easy to break, but that's where our tarsals are, guys. They're in our foot, along with our metatarsals, which are just a little bit smaller, really. Okay, so we're on to the right hand side. Okay, guys, so onto those two bones that are in our forearm. So remember, I mentioned that we've got two different bones. One of them we can see is only 4 letters, and from here we can see that there is only one 4-letter word, so that is ulna. Yeah, so ulna is one of the bones in the forearm. What else have we got? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words, 6 letters. The second letter is A, so that's too long. We've had humerus. Second letter is not A, which makes it this one, doesn't it, guys? So we've got radius. Yeah, so ulna and radius are the 2 bones in the forearm. Now, the way that I remember which way around they are, I remember we've got 2 words. Yeah, we've got 2 words, radius and ulna. I think little finger. So from the littlest finger is the littlest word. Yeah, so littlest finger, littlest word. Out of radius and ulna, the littlest word or the shortest word is ulna. Yeah, so the bone that comes down the side of your arm where your little finger is always going to be the ulna. Yeah, and then that means that the other one is going to be the radius. So ulna and radius in the forearm. What else have we got? So we did radius. This one here is 2 words, and we've only got one option that is 2 words, and that is rib cage. You know, hopefully one that we were able to recognize already. You know, rib cage again protects a lot of those major organs, and keeps them safe. And you'll actually notice, guys, you can actually see from the picture again. So some of the ribs come round and connect onto the sternum at the front of the body, but then lower down we've got certain ribs that don't, and we call them floating ribs. So they sort of attach. They start on the spine like all of them do, but they don't quite make it all the way around to attach to the sternum as well. Yeah. Now that just gives us obviously a little bit more movement. Can you imagine how restricted we would be if our full rib cage came all the way down, pretty much right the way down to our pelvis? Again, we wouldn't have much movement at our waist and our midriff. Now, a lot of the time, if you're going to crack a rib or break a rib or whatever, it tends to be these floating ribs because they're not as strong and they're not as solid and they're not as sturdy. So that's why it tends to be the lower ribs that are going to get damaged. Now, so it's really easy to forget as well, because I think whenever we look at ribs, they're always on a skeleton, or they're always sort of shown on a skeleton, which usually leaves the muscle off as well, guys. But it's really easy to forget that we actually have muscle between the ribs as well, muscles that we call intercostals. So we've got these muscles between the ribs. Now, they actually stretch as you breathe, because if the muscles didn't expand and didn't stretch, your rib cage wouldn't be able to expand with your lungs. So of course your lungs expand and your rib cage expands with it, and these muscles actually help stretch. So it's really easy to pull one of those muscles and strain one of those muscles through coughing and stuff like that as well. So, you know, maybe you've been coughing really, really, really hard, really bad, and you know, you're getting a bit of pain. You know, it's possible to crack a rib, but you're much more likely to have strained the muscle that like sits in like between the ribs. But of course, as always, if you're not too sure, go to a GP and get it checked out, guys. Of course, obviously, but yeah, it's just I think it's easy to forget about those muscles in particular, because, like I say, whenever we see the ribs and we see the skeleton, the muscles aren't there as well, guys. As you know, so yeah, we've got all of that going on as well. Okay, where were we? So we did rib cage. Okay, guys, so this one, we're running out of options now as well, so maybe there's a little bit of process of elimination while we try and get these last few in. So the hip bones are the it's the pelvis, yeah. So we'll go PELVIS. It's the pelvis, guys. Let me get a look. It's almost like 2 ears, isn't it? It's almost shaped like two ears facing each other, that makes that sort of connects onto the bottom of our spine. And again, we'll talk about this whole area in just a second anyway, because the way it all fits together is very sort of specific. And again, guys, none of what the human body does is wasteful or by accident, really. You know, it's a very, very fine-tuned machine, which just makes it even more fascinating to learn about, I think. Okay, guys, but we did pelvis. Okay, so the last couple that we have got so the big bone at the top of your thigh is of course the femur. Yeah, so we've got the femur there. FEMUR. And that is, yeah, it's the biggest single bone in the body, meant to be as dense and as solid as concrete, meant to be really hard to break, also meant to be really, really painful if you do. So yeah, big one in the upper leg is called the femur. And then, guys, we're just down into the lower body, or into the lower leg again, sorry. So we've got the tibia, which comes down the front of the leg, which is your shin bone pretty much. So if you have a feel of your shin bone, that's your tibia. And then we've got a little sort of fancy looking, you know, little bone at the back of the leg as well. Yeah, so we've got the fibula, yeah, which of course is the only word left by now. So we've got the tibia is the big bone at the front, and then we've got the fibula at the back as well. Okay, guys, well done if you got any of them, actually, because like I say, these are the proper scientific names for these bones, and chances are we haven't actually come across them before. So really well done if we did get any of those, guys. Okay, so let's have a little spin through and just have a look at these in a little bit more detail. So what we've got there, we can see that we've got the cranium, but then we've got the mandible as well, which is, of course, wasn't on that last diagram, but the mandible is its own separate bone. So we've got obviously, like, again, think about movement, think about those jobs of the skeleton that we talked about at the start of the session. You think about that, if our skeleton was just one solid bone, we wouldn't be able to chew anything, would we? We wouldn't be able to chew, we wouldn't be able to eat, and we would eventually die. You know, it's no accident that, you know, these are two separate bones. But yeah, when we talk about the skull, guys, and the cranium, the jawbone typically isn't involved in that because it's its own bone as well. Again, you know, so we have muscles that attach to our lower jaw, which lets us bite down and helps us chew things. Okay, guys, so let's get a bit of a deeper look at the spine that we were talking about. So of course we mentioned earlier on that we've got this spine is sort of vertebrae upon vertebrae upon vertebrae, which gives us a lot of the movement that we get. We actually adults end up with 206 bones in the body. Yeah, you know, a lot of them actually being in the spine stacked on top of each other, but we've got 206 bones. Kids are actually born with more. Babies are born with more, and then some of them like fuse together as they get older, and like multiple bones become one. You think about it's not. Oh, this is a little bit as a diagram, so we can actually see that the skull or the cranium has plates. Yeah, so it's separate plates of bone that are together and then sort of fused. Now, when a baby is born, they're not as strong and they're not as fused. So if you've ever heard like the saying, like, don't touch a baby's soft spot, you know, it is because the skull isn't fully developed yet, you know. So yeah, we're actually born with a lot more bones than 206, but some of them sort of, like I say, fuse together, solidify, strengthen, and yeah, we end up with 206 individual bones that, you know, tend to all have their own jobs to do. So in the spine, we've actually got different sections of the spine as well that they might be referred to. So, you know, the likelihood of us needing it on a day-to-day basis is pretty slim. But if you've ever been for like an X-ray or a scan or a checkup or something, and, you know, maybe you've gone for a bit of physio after a car accident or whatever it might be, do you know what I mean? They might say, okay, you've got an issue with spine, like disc T3. And you're like, well, what's T3? And what it actually is, the T stands for the section of the spine, thoracic, yeah, which is this one here. And it would be, T3 would be the third one down, yeah, in that section of the spine. So there's different sections that we've got. So we've got the cervical spine, yeah, and we've got the cervical spine at the top, at the top of the sort of, it's in your neck really, up to the base of the skull, that allows for like a little bit of movement side to side, but mainly the articulation of looking left, looking right. Again, thinking about a survival point of view, being able to check your surroundings, look for other predators, scan for other prey as well. So yeah, a lot of the bones in the upper portion are designed for, like I say, helping us move our head, really. Okay, so then we've got the thoracic spine, yeah, thoracic. Not Jurassic, thoracic. Okay, so we've got that's the next 12 vertebrae, yeah. So we've got 7 vertebrae at the top, then we've got 12, and then we've got 5 in the next section down, yeah. So the way I remember that, guys, I think about meal times, yeah. So 7, 12, and 5. 7 for your breakfast, 12 for your dinner, 5 for you too, yeah. I think 7, 12, 5. Jobs are good. Okay, guys. So this next group doesn't give us as much sort of flexibility with our spine, because it's given our ribs something to hold on to, isn't it? You know, it's given us a lot of support there, you know. So of course, naturally, that part of our spine isn't going to move as much because our ribs they're quite fixed, really. Yeah, they'll move and slide a little bit, but they're not like I say, they are quite fixed, especially the ones that come around the front and meet on your sternum as well. So that part of our spine tends not to get as much movement. And then we've got the what we call the lumbar spine at the bottom, this little green section here as well. So what we've got, like I say, we've got 5 vertebrae there as well. Now this section here, these 5 vertebrae actually give us more movement than these top 2 put together. Yeah, so these 5 vertebrae give us more movement than these, 12 plus 7, 19, yeah, from these 5, which is why a lot of the pain that we get in our back tends to be lower back, because it's responsible for so much movement, and we really challenge the muscles that sit in that area as well. So that is partially why a lot of the problems that we get with our back is going to be felt in the lower back, because that area is responsible for so much more movement and giving us much more flexibility. Then we've got what we call the sacrum at the bottom, which are actually these vertebrae here, which are actually fused together, so they don't move anywhere near as much. And again, that gives our pelvis a lot of support. We can say that it gives our pelvis something to connect to either side as well. And you can actually feel that sometimes, guys, if you feel like really, really low down at the base of your spine. You know, you've maybe heard it called like your tailbone before, or your coccyx. And again, you can actually sit down too hard or too fast and hurt or bruise this. So definitely something to be mindful of. But if you've ever like sat down too fast and wondered what on earth is that I've heard, that's what you've heard. That's what it is. And like I say, we can see how it's actually given the pelvis a lot of support as well, and kind of anchoring our lower body, really, because of course everything to get to our lower body goes through the pelvis area, really, down the spine and through the pelvis. Okay, guys, so we talked about the rib cage quite a lot while we were looking at the diagram. We can see, obviously, like I say, a lot of them come around and connect at the front, and some of them just don't. Yeah, those are floating ribs. Then we've got this bone at the front, which is actually sort of separated off a little bit better on the right-hand side. And of course, we've got like I say, the sternum, and that gives our ribs something to connect to, but also kind of acts as sort of like a natural shield, you know, to protect your heart. Because as we talked about when we looked at the heart that week, our heart sits nice and central in our chest, and it gets a lot more protection there. Okay, guys, spinning on. We've got the clavicle or collarbone, yeah, and we can see that it comes out into our shoulder joint. So it actually helps set our frame and give us some of our shape as well, and helps with again movement. You know, shoulders coming up towards ears, shoulders coming forward, shoulders coming backwards. A lot of that sort of postural sort of movement comes from the collarbone and the shoulder blade. Actually, you think our shoulder blade, as we round our shoulders forward, our shoulder blades pull outwards and round the body. When we sort of push our chest out and nip our shoulder blades back, they would come back and sit much closer together on your back as well. So these, of course, working with muscles to pull them, but it's the fact that the scapula can come so far forward that gives us the ability to get into that rounded shape, rounded shoulder sort of shape, which has its place. It's just not ideal to be sort of like that all day long, which is kind of where we're getting a lot of postural problems from these days, especially sort of through and post lockdown, where we've spent a lot more time sat at the computer, you know, sat down, hunched over, maybe gaming, scrolling social media or whatever. So yeah, these are designed to help us get into these shapes. We're just not meant to stay in them all day long for weeks or months on end, guys, really. So yeah, a lot of our movement in our shoulder area comes from the clavicle and the scapula, or the collarbone and the shoulder blade as well. Okay, then we've got the sort of longer bones in the arm that we mentioned earlier on. We've got the humerus. That isn't very funny at all. So we've got the humerus in the upper arm, then we've got the ulna and the radius. Now, remembering again, we can see from the way this guy's got his hand out, we've got the thumb and then the little finger. Yeah. So remember, little finger is the little word. So little finger is the little word. So ulna always comes down from the little finger, and the radius always comes down from the thumb. Yeah. So that's got humerus, ulna, radius in the arms. And then essentially, guys, our legs are built the same way. We've got a long bone at the top. We've got our femur. Then we've got our joint, of course, in our up in our arm, it's our elbow. In our legs, it's our knees. We've got our joint. We've got, obviously, like I mentioned earlier as well, the kneecap that sits over that joint as well to give it some protection. Then we've got the tibia and the fibula in the leg as well. So again, tibia is at the front, the big one that would be your shin bone, yeah. And then we've got the fibula sort of offsetting at the back as well. That's in the leg. So again, we can see how similar our limbs are. You know, it's our arms. And that's our legs. So yeah, our limbs are very, very similar, guys. So, you know, again, at some point in our history, did they used to do the same job? Well, that's probably a conversation for a different day. But I think it's definitely evidence that it is. Okay, guys. So into some of the more sort of detailed sort of stuff. So we've got like we mentioned, we've got our carpals and our metacarpals in our hands. Again, remember carpal tunnel syndrome. And then we've got tarsals and metatarsals in our feet. Yeah, so the build-up's very much the same, guys. So we've got our carpals, like I mentioned, are pretty much very, very base of your palm. Yeah. Then we've got our metacarpals as they sort of start to branch off into their own fingers. But of course, we've got our skin in the palm of our hand there to sort of hide that a little bit. And then we get to this part here, where we actually see our fingers become their own like individual fingers. So we've got like different sections of the finger as well. So we've got our carpals at the base, then we've got our metacarpals, and then once we get to that sort of first knuckle joint, we've got what we call phalanges. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about distal, intermediate, proximal, whatever. Yeah, but those are phalanges. So if you've ever seen Friends, you'll probably know where I'm going with this. But the phalanges are a part of the hand. They're not a working item on an aircraft, guys. So yeah, phalanges are right at our fingertips. All these little individual parts that would bend, you know, as we're picking stuff up, grabbing hold of something. Those are our phalanges. But in the palm of our hand, we've got our carpals and our metacarpals, guys. And again, the foot's exactly the same. We've got tarsals really close to the ankle joint. Yeah, so we've got tarsals just like we have carpals. Then in our foot, as they start to branch off, we have our metatarsals, just like we've got our metacarpals. And then right at the end, we've got the phalanges again. Yeah, so again, phalanges in the toes and in the fingers as well. So yeah, again, just more similarities between our limbs and in this case, our hands and our feet. Really interesting sort of stuff. Okay, guys, then I don't know why that's there. We've done both of them. Okay, guys, cool. So quiz time. Grab yourself a pen and paper. I'll hold off a minute or so. Grab yourself a pen and paper, and we're going to have a go at naming these bones with their proper names, given that all of those that we were just sort of talking about as well, and we've been through so far this morning. So yeah, 14 of them, 14 questions, and try and get an answer for each. Yeah. And again, once you've got an answer in a couple of them, you might be able to say, okay, I know it's not the answer for this one. And again, a little bit of process of elimination that way as well. So same again, we'll have 5 minutes or so, see how we get on, and then I'll start going through the answers, and then we're going to look at actually some of the joints in the body as well, and how some of these bones actually fit together. Okay, guys, so we'll give it a couple of minutes, see how many of these you can get. So we've got number 1 is the hip bone, 2 is the skull, 3 is the shoulder blade, 4 is the kneecap, 5 protects your heart and your lungs, 6 is the bone in the forearm above the thumb, 7 is the long bone at the top of the arm, yeah. 8 is the large lower leg bone at the front, so lower leg at the front, so your shin bone, proper name for the shin bone. Collarbone for number 9. Number 10 is the small lower leg bone at the back, yeah, so the one that isn't your shin. Toes and fingers. 12 is a long bone at the top of the leg, so thigh bone, big old thigh bone. 13, breastbone or your breastplate, proper name for that. And number 14 is the bone in the forearm above the little finger. Yeah, and I think, yeah, that's all of them. Cool. So yeah, a couple of minutes, guys, see how many of those we can get. And then we'll blast through them, guys. I'll give you the answers and we'll move on. Have to figure out how to get some quiz music on in the morning. I think I have to get some quiz music going. A couple of minutes, guys, and I'll start whipping through these. All right, let's get to it then. Let's get to it. So, first one, we have the hip bone, which is the pelvis. Yeah, Elvis, the pelvis. Number 2 was the skull, so the cranium. Yeah, proper name for the skull is the cranium. 3 was the shoulder blade, which is scapula. Proper name for the kneecap, guys, is actually the patella. Yeah, so the patella is the kneecap. Number 5, this protects your heart and lungs. Must be, yes, the ribs, rib cage. Just checking it wasn't sternum, but that's further down. Bone in the forearm above the thumb. So remember, same again, 2 words, radius and ulna. Little finger is the little word, so the other one from the thumb's got to be radius. Yeah, so number 6 is radius. Long bone at the top of the arm. Funny bone is the humerus. A large lower leg bone at the front, so the shin bone is the tibia. Yeah. Number 9, collarbone, was clavicle. Yeah, remember we've got the clavicle. 11 was the small lower leg bone at the back, so not the shin bone. The shin bone is the tibia, and the other one is the fibula, guys. Yeah, so number 10 is fibula. 11, toes and fingers, is called phalanges. 12, the long bone at the top of the leg, so your thigh bone is your femur. Then we've got the last 2, breastbone is of course your sternum. Yeah, that breastplate that we've talked about. And the bone in the forearm above the little finger, of course, is the ulna. Little word, little finger. Yeah, ulna. So really well done, guys. Again, see how many of those we got. If you want to drop us an email or stick it in the chat and let us know how you got on, please do. I'm always interested to find out how you're getting on, especially with your little quiz and stuff like that we chuck in there as well, guys. So again, give me a shout if you want to. Okay, guys. So out of 14, how did we do? Do you think it means that? Do you think it says okay? I can maybe do. We're going back through this again in a day or two. Are you thinking okay? I'll come back and see it in and again a couple of weeks or a month or so, just to refresh and touch up on a couple of bits? Or are you feeling okay? I feel as though I've got a pretty solid understanding of this now, you know, and all these different bones and what they do and stuff like that. So again, you know where I'm at, guys. My email address is in the description if you do need to reach out and give me a shout about anything. Okay, guys, so just to sort of bring us into wrapping up sort of for the day, looking at the different joints in the body, actually, because of course we've got these bones that we've talked about at great length now, and now we're going to be thinking about how do they connect together? Why do they do certain things? Why do certain bones move in certain ways and others don't? You know, why have I got sort of this much movement in my shoulders, but only this much movement in my elbow, sort of thing? So let's have a little bit of a look. So we've got different joints that allow different parts of our body to move in different ways as well, you know, sort of what I mentioned early on in the session when I was on about our hip joint, and that we get a lot of movement from there as well. So we've actually got we've got 6 different types of joints in the body. So let's break them down a little bit. So the first one that we've got is a pivot joint that allows a lot of rotation, and of course we can see that we see it in the neck vertebrae, and of course that pivot joint is just sort of like one sitting on top of the other, and it will be able to rotate. So that gives us a lot of movement in our neck. Again, let's just move side to side as well. So that's where we're getting that rotation from. Pivot joints don't really give you much other movement at all, really. Okay, guys, cool. Then we've got a hinge joint. So it allows like a swinging motion, like a door hinge. If you think about how a door will open and close, the way that the hinge works, it'll open, it'll close, of course, open the door, bring the door back in. And we've got a few of these in the body. Now the first 2 that jump to my mind are always the elbow joint, because of course the elbow moves like that and not really any other way, does it? You know, you can open it, you can close it, and your knee's exactly the same, guys. You know, you can sort of extend your leg, straighten your leg out, and you know, bend your leg and bring your heel towards your bum as well if you want to. So those are those hinge joints that they really do just sort of open and close. Now, of course, our elbows are there, our knees are there, but our ankle works the same like that as well. Doesn't really give us a lot of rotation. And of course, fingers and toes are the same as well. You know, I can either, they're all little individual hinges, you know, say like that'll hinge shut and that'll hinge shut and that'll hinge shut, and all of that happens at the same time as I go to pick something up, you know. And again, the reverse when you sort of open your palm up as well. So yeah, obviously your fingers only really move that way, your knees, your ankles only really move that way, and that's because they're hinge joints. And we can have a look in just a second and see how some of them are actually broken down. In fact, we'll do it as we're going through. So the pivot joint that we were talking about is very much this one here. Yeah, so it is a bone sitting on top of a bone that allows rotation. Yeah, then we've got the hinge joint, which is this sort of one here. Yeah, which allows it to open and close. Okay, just like I say, just like the elbows, just like the fingers and stuff like that. Okay, guys, then we've got what we call a saddle joint, which is similar to a hinge joint, but provides more range of movement. For example, the thumb. So, of course, fingers can only really do that. Yeah, you can waggle them backwards and forwards a little bit, but the joints in your fingers are on those phalanges that we talked about. They're only really hinge joints. They're only really going to sort of bend that way. Then we've got the thumb, which does the same. But because the thumb is a saddle joint, we can, of course, do that sort of movement as well. We have different movements. I can't do that. I can sort of like twirl my fingers so it points in a circle, but I can't move the whole thing like I can with the thumb, you know, side to side, up and down. We have a lot more dexterity and a lot more range of movement in our thumb, which, you know, is a lot of what helps us be human and pick things up and all of that sort of thing, you know, opposable thumbs. But yeah, that's what a saddle joint is, guys. And pretty much the only place in the body you're going to find one, to be honest, on the thumb. But that is why our thumbs have a little bit more range and a bit more movement than our fingers and our digits do. Okay, guys, then we've got what we would call gliding joints. Yeah, so the joints don't, the bones don't actually sort of connect. They just sort of glide a lot, like slide alongside each other. Yeah, and you'll find those sort of bones in your wrists and in your ankles. Yeah, in your hands. Those gliding muscles that are going to sort of move alongside each other. Okay, cool. Then we've got a condyloid, joint. Yeah. So it's where one bone fits into the cavity of another. So you can say condyloid and hinge joints aren't massively different. Yeah, in terms of appearance there. Now the thing with condyloid is it allows no rotation at all. Yeah. So a hinge joint will give you at least a little bit of rotation. You can sort of move your forearm around, and that elbow joint's going to change and move and adapt a little bit. The condyloid, on the other hand, is no rotation at all. So think about where your wrist is and where it meets that radius bone. Yeah, think about where it meets that radius bone. That's a condyloid joint, and that allows no rotation at all. You try rotating your palm without your wrist, and just your wrist move. Yeah, it can't be done. You feel those two bones in your upper arm start to follow the palm round. Yeah, this joint here doesn't do a great deal in terms of movement, apart from connecting the hand onto the forearm, really. So yeah, that's the main difference between a condyloid and a hinge joint, is that the hinge will at least give you a little bit of rotation. Condyloid doesn't let you do any at all, really. And yeah, you'll find that in the wrist where it connects to the radius. And then we've got the ball and socket joint, guys. And we've got the ball and socket joint, which is the sort of it could be your shoulder. Yeah, so we've got where the shoulder sits into that socket, and you can do obviously a lot of different movements. We can do front raise, side raise, overhead push, pulling movements, whatever. It comes from having that much range in the shoulder joint, and that was because we've got this ball that sits in the socket. It sits really, really deep in the cavity of another bone. So that is why we have a lot of range in our shoulders and our hips, but also why we can pick up a lot of injuries there as well, because when there's that much range for movement, there's every chance that we're going to ask something to work and activate and sort of fire and kick in a position that it shouldn't be doing that, really. Sort of bad movement patterns and stuff like that as well. So the ball and socket joint, it gives us a lot of range, a lot of opportunities for movement, but of course the more opportunities for movement we have, the easier it is to hurt ourselves. Again, thinking about that lower back and that lumbar section of the spine, those 5 vertebrae give us so much more movement in our lower back when we're moving side to side, leaning forward, all of that. And that is where a lot of the pain tends to end up, in our lower back, because we've got that much more movement there. And it's really easy to sort of get out of a natural sort of position that your body's kind of used to. But that's the there you go. That's the sort of idea of a ball and socket joint. We've got the ball, which in this case would be the very, very top of your femur. Yeah, so the top of your thigh bone, and then we'd have the ball and like the socket for it to sit into, which is in the pelvis. Let's see if I can find. Yeah, so we've got this is the femur. We've got that ball there that sits at the top of the femur, and then it sits in this natural sort of socket in the pelvis, yeah, in the lower pelvis. And then the shoulder, we can say the shoulder does the same. Yeah, we've got this rounded section of the humerus, yeah, that long bone, and then we've actually got like a socket for it to fit into as well, where the sort of clavicle is, and very deep in that shoulder joint as well. Okay, guys, cool. So that gives us like a really good in-depth look at the like I said, the skeleton, the different jobs that it does. You know, hopefully we're sort of leaving the session with a lot more appreciation for our bones and our skeletons. And again, guys, it's, you know, coming to understand this and how it all works and how it fits together and how it's all very deliberate. To me, just sort of signifies how important it is to take care of ourselves, you know, in as many ways as we can. You know, it's about our heart and our lungs, of course. It's about muscles. It's about muscle in general. But at the same time, guys, we can't neglect our bones. We can't neglect our skeleton, you know, when we're thinking about eating a good diet that's going to help us repair them, getting enough protein in and stuff like that, helping our body repair itself and repair all the cells that die off and drop off and stuff like that. And fun little fact. I mean, I guess I'll let you decide how fun it is, but astronauts actually struggle with bone density when they've been in gravity for so long, or zero gravity for so long. So gravity and its effect on our bones while we're actually walking around and moving and exercising and stuff like that helps them get thicker, stronger, harder to break, and very similar to, if you've heard of osteoporosis, which is the same sort of thing, where, you know, due to either genetics, lack of exercise, dietary choices, a combination of all three, your bones can actually end up really brittle, will break easily, and again, one of the most effective ways I've ever found of dealing with like addressing that and hopefully reversing that or preventing that has been getting people into the gym and getting them to do resistance exercises, you know, not chucking around big weights, but, you know, even just doing farmers walks up and down the gym. You've got a weight in each hand and you're walking. It can be harder than it looks, and it's all good for your bones, guys. Of course, I'm sure we by now, having talked about nutrition and stuff like that as well, we know about the importance of calcium, especially in kids, and as we're growing up, to help us develop good, strong bones as well. But yeah, astronauts, when they've been in 0G for so long, they actually get potentially sort of osteoporosis-like symptoms, and their bones, when they come back to Earth, are a lot more brittle, a lot more fragile, a lot easier to break, and they tend to have to go through not rehabilitation programs, but almost kind of, where they have to train their body and get it used to being on Earth again, you know, in gravity and under the influence, like experiencing gravity. Okay. There was actually, I remember when I went to Florida last in 2017, I went to Kennedy Space Center, and they obviously it's all based around the stuff that they've sent up into space, and there's a lot of examples of stuff that they've got working up in space at the minute. And they've actually got weight machines up there, guys. They've actually sent up weight machines for the astronauts to keep fit and get some kind of resistance on their body, because again, you know, when we first started the space program and first started going into space, we were realizing that astronauts were getting a lot of muscle wastage because there's not enough up there to challenge your muscles in the same way that gravity does. So yeah, your muscles and your bones would really sort of struggle. So again, that is why they've put a lot of money. You think, like, I think it's, I want to say something stupid like £1 million to send up, or $1 million to send a pound of weight. Maybe, don't quote me on that. I might be way off with that. But anyway, of course, anything to send into space costs money. They deliberately try and make the spaceships as or the rockets or whatever it is, they try and make them as light as they can because it's more mass to move. And they've gone through the hassle and the cost of sending weights, like literal weights, up into space, so that the like I say, so the astronauts can get exercise and keep on top of their fitness because of stuff like this, the bone density, guys. Like I say, I've even had met like Joe Public, gym members and stuff like that have come to me with diagnosed early onset osteoporosis, and like I say, getting on the resistance training and doing a little bit can actually help, guys. For all, I'm always saying, listen to your body, rest when you need to rest. To an extent, a little bit, no pain, no gain. I don't usually agree with it. I don't usually agree with the mindset, because it encourages more bad habits than good habits, really. But yeah, when it comes to that sort of thing, like, don't be thinking to yourself, okay, like, I'm not fit enough to exercise, like I can't manage to exercise. Find something you can manage. Find a small amount and build it up, and you will find that your body doesn't struggle more as you ask it to do more. Your body will actually adapt, and you will get stronger, and that includes muscles and bones and stuff like that as well, guys. So try not to be put off doing like a little bit of something, as long as you've got GP clearance. If you can do a little bit of something, just with it being like I say, a little bit of something. So that'll about wrap us up for the day then, guys. That'll about do us. Okie dokie. Okay, so spinning through. Okay, where were we? There, guys. Okay, guys. So as always, if you did ever want to come back and sort of check when the next session's going to be or whatever, this slide, I'll always leave it up for a couple of minutes at the end of the session. So you can always sort of come back, and you don't need to sit through the full video to try and find out, okay, when was the next session again, guys. So as always, guys, please don't forget to do that. Don't forget to do that survey that's in the link by the description. Where is it? So if you click the little drop down arrow under the video for the YouTube stream, and then that's where I'm saying my the fitness videos in there again. So check that out and let us know which one you've done. The survey is in there. So again, just click the survey, guys. It'll take you, just click the link. It'll take you straight to where you need to be. Put all your answers onto that page, onto that form, and then the answers come straight back to us. So you don't need to worry too much about sort of downloading it and trying to get it sent back over to me and this, that, and the other, guys. Just put your answers straight on there, and they come back to us. And of course, as always, guys, it gives us some really important feedback that we need to complete paperwork on your behalf on this end. And at the same time, your feedback's important to us in general. We like to know your guys' thoughts and what we're doing well, where we can improve, and all of that sort of stuff as well. So as always, guys, your feedback is important to us. We will, of course, be back next Monday at the same time, and we're going to be talking about and looking at different eating habits, not so much to do with the nutritional side of things, but thinking more specifically along the lines of how we get into certain eating habits, certain things like associated eating, where, okay, I'm going to the cinema, so I have to have a hot dog, nachos, a bar of chocolate, and the biggest drink, and a load of popcorn that I can find. Yeah, you get to that point in your mind. It's like, okay, I'm going to the football, I'm going to go to the burger van, I'm going to get a pint, stuff like that, and it's things like that, and more extreme versions as well, that can actually lead us to of course, changing our eating habits and getting into some bad eating habits. And of course, really, our physical being is just the sum of all of our habits, really, I guess. So if your habits change, the way that you look and perform will change, which is where the idea of getting yourself into a diet that isn't necessarily temporary, because I don't like to use the word diet sort of implying that it's temporary, but the word diet as in, what am I eating in general? What does my food intake for the day look like, and how can I change it so that, you know, what I look like day to day or how I feel day to day is going to be different as well, you know. So yeah, there's a few but naughty eating habits that's really easy to fall into, you know, the idea of okay, I'm starting a diet next week, I'm going to eat everything I can between now and then, you know. That can actually be a little bit of a habit, or, you know, even just thinking to yourself, right, I'm home alone, I've got a little bit of privacy, know if nobody's going to see me eat it, I can get away with it, you know, which I've definitely known people that fall into that mindset as well. So like I say, a lot to look forward to next week. Quite an interesting session, actually. Looking forward to it, guys. So, of course, you know where I am in the meantime. Of course, just drop me an email if needs be. My email again is in that description underneath the video as well. So if you need me for anything, give me a shout. But please don't forget to do that survey, guys. It's not even 30 seconds to fill it in, and it is important as well. So yeah, we'll be back next Monday, same time, and we'll be looking at paired eating and overeating. If you need me in the meantime, drop me an email, and if not, we'll be back next Monday to do it all again and have a look at that food side of things a little bit more. As always, guys, thanks for logging on this morning. I hope you all have a good week. You know, it's Monday, start the week right. Again, get at least a fitness video done. Come back to a couple of different ones throughout the week if you want. You know, keep yourself on your toes, change it up a little bit. But it's Monday, guys. Let's get off to a good start, and sort of hit the ground running for this week. Yeah, give me a shout if you need anything. If not, stay safe, take care, have a good week, and I'll catch you all next Monday. Thanks again for logging in, guys. Speak to you soon. See you later.